Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Oh, we're back. Back with another month.
What a month.
Oh, my God. It's been quite the month.
It's been a minute.
It has. And we're moving enough for this thing that happens tomorrow. Nobody gives a shit about.
What's happening tomorrow?
I don't know.
You know what?
Yeah, Tuesday.
No
Tacos.
matter what happens, the fact that we switched the show is going to be the only thing that changed.
Right.
It's
True. That's true. The most important thing happened is we switched to tonight. That's the most important thing.
That's right.
Exactly. But we do have some things.
Is he playing with us?
Oh, he
So what do we got?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. What do we have on the agenda tonight, Bob?
All right. We got we were talking a little bit about first let's do a couple of things. There, okay. He's back. There he is. It's Mike goes, is he screwing with us again?
I wish.
No, what I was going to say was before we get rolling, kudos to Bobby and Mike, the hazmat guys, for all of the new stuff that you guys got going on. You guys got shows, you got other shows.
Yeah.
My hashtag things on different platforms now, but I dare say you guys are the leaders in the podcast business.
Well, we just stood up this new friggin' podcast that's it's the news read to you.
It's totally cool.
It's spooky. I just did tomorrow's, and it's creepy how well it does it.
Yeah. So anyway, big props for you guys because you guys are leading the charge. I love it.
I love it. Thank you.
Golf clap.
Yep. I love it. So,
enough of that. What are we doing tonight?
Yeah, what are we doing?
No better way to make me uncomfortable. I fucking hate you. All right.
Love it. We were talking about fires that are related to hazmat, or are hazmat fires. I think that was part of it. And then I had sent something to Ben and Bobby about kind of going in line with that. But a run that we had, my department, Orlando, had, was assisting another agency that went to an automatic fire alarm only for it to be an anhydrous ammonia leak. And it was a large FDA facility and close to the airport. The guys pulled up, mechanical alarm, everybody does it. You walk in, you go on how many of those a day, right? And unfortunately, they walked right into a hazardous atmosphere when they called for help, because we are that agency's hazmat team. Our guys were pulling up to see firefighters literally opening port caps on the fire engine, splashing water on themselves because they were burning around their neck, and all the typical areas of moisture collects, so they got burned. So I was sharing the story of how, okay, now it went from an automatic fire alarm to a hazmat call, and I don't know if we can get any of the pictures to pop up, but the big problem that we had, there we go. So there's a facility, and, there's nothing special about it except for the anhydrous ammonia. And there was a tank that, for whatever reason, they put inside this building right over a drain. So when they had this anhydrous ammonia leak, they got the people outside, took care of what they needed to. Our department and others came to assist that agency with the guys that got burned. And now we had to take care of the ammonia. There's the tank. And literally it was, there it is, dropped right in the drain and went through the drainage system, which I'll talk about in a second. So when they had this whole anhydrous ammonia through this building, they thought, okay, well, how the hell are we going to take care of it? Because you got an international airport on one side, you got a neighborhood on the other side. And the tactic that was used was actually kind of ingenious. So what they did was they took high pressure fans at one end, blew it all out to an adjacent door a door on the opposite side, and used a ground hugger or ram nozzle or whatever you want to call it, basically an unmanned monitor with a fog pattern. So as this gas came out, the water hit it and it drove it right into the ground. And you'll see some pictures where it shows the burning of the grass from the anhydrous ammonia. Well, because of that leak into that drain, it also went into the drainage system. So you'll see there it is. You'll see a manhole cover there, and that's from the vapors coming out from this ammonia leak. So,
wow,
it was crazy. So the new problem is what do we do with all that's in that system? And the next day was my shift. We ended up coming out there after they did all this, and they still had high levels of ammonia, and they needed to get it out of the system. And literally going inside and pouring buckets of water to flush it out to this part where we dropped a 3-inch line into the manhole, called the stormwater people ahead of time and said, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do, so that they could adjust their pH levels and whatever when it got there. And we had to flush this whole system. So it's a short and sweet kind of call as far as our discussion tonight. But basically, the moral of the story is we went from a mechanical alarm to a hazmat call in a nanosecond, and having to transition, that quickly for those agencies. And it goes back to, just because it's a mechanical alarm, there's an alarm for a reason. Yes, 90% of the time it's bullshit. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the 10% that it wasn't. And we had Stell levels the next day inside there, and we were going in there, like I said, flushing the system out till we got it out and got it through their system, and they were able to, go back to business after a period of time.
I mean, ammonia is pretty strong stuff. Did they walk into the build? Like, how did they get into an environment where now suddenly they're burning without any heads up that like you're walking into an ammonia building?
The way it was described to me was it was a mechanical alarm. They walked in, and when they went through a certain door, they didn't, the vapor, the cloud was still pretty far from where they were at, but the concentration was such that they were getting the burning effects. They didn't have their mask on, so the burning eyes, all that shit you walk right into. I remember walking into a mechanical alarm at a building, a club downtown, looking at fog through a window, thinking it was a damn fog machine. And my dumb ass walked in there, like most people do, and walked into about 50 bug bombs that had been lit off in there that looked just like the damn fog machine at 3 a.m., because we'd gone to that so many times. And you know what? That complacency bit me in the ass, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
I do understand. I had one as a probie on the engine pull up. It was a relatively dark road. Bright moonlight was the only light, and there what looked to be smoke pushing out of two windows on the top floor. Immediately grabbed the line, start running, to the door, and it turns out that it was a steam leak on the top, and you couldn't really see much because it was nighttime. There were no lights. I'm looking through the moonlight. It looked just like smoke, only I failed to recognize that it disappeared within, a few feet of the building, which smoke usually doesn't do. So, yeah, I gotcha.
Right. So this is just a picture of them, SCBA, and this is at Stell levels. I mean, if it was anything above that, obviously it's a Nomex jumpsuit and whatnot. But obviously anything above that, they would have been dressed a little bit differently.
Sure. And that's totally acceptable, right? Like we can change our PBEs depending on levels. We've had ammonia runs where we've done them in Tyvek, in bunker gear, and in level A. So, your meters really are the biggest driver towards that PPE and being comfortable in a situation like this.
Yeah.
Hey Bob, was that anhydrous, or was it like an aqueous ammonia? Because the tank looks just a little suspicious to me. It doesn't look like a
it does. And this was a little bit ago. Yeah, you're right. It does not look normal. And here was the kicker that they said, hey, you need to hurry up and flush that, because the anhydrous that it was leaking was drying out all the gears and everything that was going to cause a major blow by of the system, they told us. So we had like a very short window to get this done so they could come in and do the repairs that they needed to do.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Even the grass, like if you're seeing browning of grass, like, all right, so when I was a kid, well, it wasn't so long ago, but we used to, you can get the Miracle Grow stuff, or what you do is you get one of those things that go on the bottom of your sprayer. You put, I don't remember what the proportions. It was like ammonia, a bottle of beer, some soap, and you'd make like lawn, like it was Miracle Grow, but you make it for nothing. And so what we used to do is we used to run over to somebody's house that we hated, and we used to put it onto their hose, and I'd write "Dick" on their lawn, and it would come in the luscious greenest, and you can't mow that out. You can't get rid of that. But the fact that it actually burned it means like it was, everybody knows ammonia is super basic.
Right.
So if it's unbalanced with the beer or the soap or whatever, or the dilution, it'll just burn that stuff, which is what's kind of interesting is that the stuff around it isn't super green. Maybe it's a little too early.
That was probably a couple. That was probably within.
Yeah, it did come back really green about a month later.
Yeah. Like when the dog pisses in the lawn, there's a dead spot, and then
lots of ammonia.
Yeah.
Yep. That's interesting, and also that creek. Ben asked, where does the drain go? Because it's like a waterway. It looked like
it was a city system, so we knew ahead of time that it actually was going to eventually hit the water treatment facility. So we called the water plant and said, "Hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. Are you good with it?" "Yeah, that's fine. Give us about 10 minutes to adjust what we need to so they could compensate for that ammonia that was coming through."
That's sick. That's I like how they used. What do they use? What'd you call it? A groundhog?
Ground hugger, an unmanned monitor.
Yeah.
Deck gun on the ground, whatever you guys call it up there. But yeah, so they just put it there, open it up, fog nozzle, captured the gas, drove it right into the ground.
That's
kept it from going to the airport or to the neighborhood.
I'm a big fan of that. Like, if you position a hose line in the right position, everybody that's in the fire department knows, like, when you put a fog line in the window to vent the place out, you fill 60% of the window up, not 100%.
Right.
And that way you get that air entrainment. They call it the Bernoulli's principle. It's how a jet plane works, right? So the air goes in with a certain amount and it drafts in a huge amount. So if you set up that fan on the positive pressure side on one side of the building and then put an unmanned fog line on the output side, not only are you dropping it to the ground, but you're creating a crazy air train that's non-flammable. Right. Like, it has no ignition points. So it's a very fast way to vent the place.
Yeah, and I see Joe Perez says, does it have a reference for the capacity? No, it didn't. Not that I recall.
Was there any talk about just letting it ventilate and go up?
No, because it was a USDA facility. I said FDA, USDA facility. So they had a lot of products. They wanted to get in there and get this handled before they lost millions of dollars of products. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's a good point to say, like, what happens when a situation starts as one and then evolves to something else, and it's that complacency thing where, I mean, we see it all the time. You guys, well, actually, everybody here, we were all from cities that got hot, and so, like, you'd go to an EMS run, for something, and what do you wear? You wear just maybe your pants,
right?
Like, that's it. Like, you wear pants and some gloves, and you go in and handle the shit. But, like, how many times has an EMS run into a completely different thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then at the same time, like, walking into, like, the reality of doing the work is that you're walking into an alarm. Are you going to mask up before you walk into every single building in your entire career?
No.
And no. I don't know if that falls under the concept of complacency as much as if it does, like, this is one of those fucked up times where you're operating perfectly within what everybody else would consider normal, and then boom, suddenly it comes and bites you in the butt.
Yep. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a little something.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that setup because it looks really strange. If we can go back to the original picture, the tank. I mean, there's no markings on the tank.
You've got pressure gauges.
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing anything that said ammonia on it, but
that's going to be an insulated. You're going to have almost like a large propane tank style setup. It is rounded on each end, but what you're actually seeing is the insulation and then the protective outside of the container. So if you peel that back, you're actually going to see that rounded LPG style tank that you're thinking of when you're thinking, oh, this is a liquefied gas. Yeah, that's just insulation. You can see that insulation runs along the pipes as well. All those aren't the actual size of the pipes. You can see the pipe running in, just below those sets of gauges, those 3 gauges. That's the actual pipe, and then it runs into insulation. So these tanks are heavily insulated.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Neat little thing. Good use of the unmanned monitor for them to handle it. So worked out good.
Do they have an ammonia meter?
For this, no, they use Draeger tubes and a old style. I don't remember the product name. An old 4-gas meter for LELs. So that in conjunction with Draeger tubes.
Wow, that's interesting.
Old school, baby. Old school.
Seems like it. Jeez.
Yep.
Did somebody mention chlorine the other day on this?
Yeah, Jeff, you said something about chlorine, right?
No, we were just because they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, they're the most popular gases that we run into, and kind of the ones that we talk about the most. Right. so yeah, just the stuff that we see with them, because they're so common with, especially with us with pools out here and water treatment plants and whatnot. Cold storage facilities for the ammonia. So yeah.
Well, they were a great example of that behavioral prediction, right? In trying to figure out, what you're going to do and what the ramifications are. Because if you have a cloud of chlorine and you're trying to do the same operation that you would for the ammonia, you're going to end up with totally different results.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Mike Henowich, PID is his plan or thoughts. I would definitely do a PID.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't bring an electrochemical sensor more than 2 steps into that building. No. Two steps, get a reading, take the fucking thing out before it kills itself. And then
it's gonna get it up. Yep.
Grab your PID and even the PID. To a degree, I think we're so entrenched to be like, well, we always have to have this going. I think once you've determined what it is and you've definitely know you have a leak, then LEL and flammability become your biggest thing that you want to watch out for, so you can, operate relatively safely. Unfortunately, you're gonna burn out a meter because our electrochemical sensors nowadays are all embedded. But you know what? Screw it. It is what it is. I need my flammability metered and monitored. That would pretty much be the only thing that I would really care about going in and doing mitigation work.
And that's what was done in the beginning, just until they took care of the ignition sources. Then, they didn't even worry about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
it's just the cost of doing business. If you're going to take your meters in, that's. And I always like using different technologies. Maybe 2 different technologies to see, just because the redundancy is nice, and make sure that we're getting a response on one, we're getting similar or something close to on the other. Right. So just a kind of a confirmation thing.
I'll bring the meters in, but not like I'm not gonna wash them in the product. Like I'm not like I make a joke about it. I'm like, what meters does the entry team bring in? And you have lively discussion. And I'm like, you shouldn't bring in anything. You should be bringing in wrenches and screwdrivers and shit. Your job is
Right.
to stop the leak and not to meter, because if we're in another set of PPE, then your meters told you that. That's the line.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like, our meters are, for the most part, in something like this, a yes, no. Is it there or is it not there?
Right.
And when we have it there, then just leave them alone, because there's no reason to take them in there unless you're really jacked up about seeing the ppms go up or the percentage of the LEO. I mean, who cares? Yeah, well, you care about the percentage of the LEO, but at some point it's like, hey, like you said, we got plumbing work to do. And that's
and in this case, you have a visual leak. We've had ammonia plants. There was an ice cream shop that became a frequent flyer for a very long time in Brooklyn. That effing drove us nuts, and we would take in the PID to find the leaks because there was no visual cloud. So depending on the mission, depending on your goals, obviously depends on what you're taking in. But we were trying to find relatively small leaks, not a catastrophic release.
Right.
Yeah, it's you don't need to take a multi-gas meter into, and I'll use the analogy, and this actually happened with a friend of mine. A kid comes up with a multi-gas meter while they're cramping a natural gas line. He says, "Hey, Lou, we're 100% LEL." No shit, we're in the hole. I don't need a meter in there. I know I'm in 100% LEL and then some.
Yeah, that's good that they have a emergency scrubber and capture vessel. That works great for like something like ammonia, where it's missable. Then it drops into the water, piece of cake. But I've heard, you'll also hear, well, people use that conflation thing and they go, oh, well, if it works for ammonia, then I can use water to drop the chlorine into hydrochloric acid. And I'll just drop it on the floor. And it's like 0.7% soluble. You'll move it, but you're not going to really solubilize it.
Right.
Yeah,
the only thing I've ever seen, and this was a training scenario somebody did, was they used high expansion foam to suppress. That's all it was. Suppress the chlorine cloud while somebody else was working on the leak.
So how did that work? I wouldn't imagine, because when you say suppress, I think liquid to vapor, and we're keeping it in the liquid form. So how did that operation do what they were looking for it to do?
Yeah, it captured it in an area, and every once in a while you could see a little burp of the gas, the yellow gas come through. So it was more of a containment,
like a high expansion.
Yeah, high expansion.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I would never have thought of that. That's a cool idea.
There's a good question from Joe Perez, and he says, does a PID pick up ammonia since it's not organic? And the answer is yes, it does pick up. We commonly tell people that the PID must be volatile and organic, but it does have it's a lie. There are select inorganic things that it will pick up as well. And this is one of them.
Yeah, it'll pick up anything with a PID less than your light bulb.
Right.
If it's less than your light bulb, it's going to pick it up. It doesn't. There's no bouncer at the door going, "Hold on, you don't have any carbon atoms. You can't come in."
And there's even a little correction factor for ammonia for the PID.
Yep.
Right. So now you know. And knowing's half the battle. Can we select the? Yep. There you go.
Nice.
I love it. That's my man back there.
How did you guys decon themselves? What was as long as we're running through the operation, what did that decon look like?
Back then, now obviously things have changed now where we'd be doing just high pressure fans, but back then they did the full pull, wet decon, 3-pool system, blah 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 blah. But now I would be like most people. It's a vapor.
Yeah.
Fan it off, baby. Fan it off.
Yeah.
It's It's amazing how much things have changed in certain regards over the past couple of years. Like really just the past 5 to 10 years, that whole concept of decon is so radically changed. Yet it's in such a position where so many people are still got their claws dug into the into the carpool. You talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, no, dry decon, but then it's like a reflex, and they do a drill or they do a scenario or they do a real run thing, and they just that kind of subconscious I must do this, right? And all of a sudden there's 3 pools out and guys are getting washed down, and you're like, come on, we just talked about this.
And the sad fact of it is I know of an area where they had an incident and it was involving a gas, and I asked the guy, so why did you guys set up the 3-pool decon? And they're like, well, it's more for show because of the Chiefs and everything. No, screw them. Tell them why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
agree. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't we don't do stuff just because that's the way we did things. You got to have an explanation for it. You got to back it with reasoning.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have something like that than the B shift salute.
Yeah.
So B shift is the same across the country. Then is what you're telling me. I get it. We'll figure it out.
We know not of this B shift that you talk of.
What is that?
I know you guys don't know nothing about that.
Nope. We've got the B team players, and sometimes they get intermingled during shifts. But
the JV team?
The JV team, yeah. The freshman gets kicked off the bench and put into the play.
Right. The last one picked for the team.
That's right.
I love it. Good job, guys.
Yeah, good stuff.
Is anybody going to be any place? I don't think there's any more conferences really coming up this year.
Not for this year. Nope. January, the 3rd. I think it's the 3rd week of January. We have the Florida Hazmat Symposium. So if you guys are interested in those of you that deal with snow, that white stuff that I don't see, please feel free to come to Daytona Beach and deal with the white stuff called sand that we see here in January. Can't beat it.
I cannot wait for snow. I can't wait for skiing. I can't wait for a blizzard. I can't wait for snow blowers.
That's because you're sick.
I love the snow. Bring it on.
I love it.
Jeff, you get snow in Phoenix, right?
No. Hey, we get snow 2 hours from my house. Literally 2 hours from my house. I can go to snow. I can go to good snow. So I'm fine with it. Keep it up there. I don't want it down here. I don't like snow. I don't like cold.
I love that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up another riveting episode of the Hazmat Guys Roundtable. Thank you, Bob and Jay-Z and Mike, for coming on and just chit-chatting and talking to the peeps. I see Ben's out there, Mike's out there, Joe, a whole bunch of you. So thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
See yous.
Bye, guys.